The Breath of Life and the Ostreavent, a response to the urgent needs of sick newborn infants in the Philippines. It all started 15 years ago when I made rounds in a provincial hospital in Bohol and saw this 13-year-old girl valiantly sustaining with her fragile hands the life of her intubated premature newborn sister by manually bagging her 24/7. I asked the neonatologist on rounds with me what the child was doing, and she replied, "Sir, that is our ventilator." I was shocked by what I heard and saw. So I asked, "What if she falls asleep or gets tired?" The neonatologist answered, "Then the infant dies." This episode never left my mind ever since. I also found out that this was a common practice in many hospitals in the Philippines due to the lack of ventilators. What shocked me even more was when some years later I saw in another government hospital in La Union 4 intubated infants connected by their oxygen tubing to a common bag and manually ventilated by one person. I therefore said to myself, this unsafe practice has got to stop. In 2012, the UNICEF reported that the Philippines is 8th in the world in premature birth rate. The premature infants have high mortality and morbidity due to organ underdevelopment, such as their lungs, and the lack of equipment to sustain life, such as with ventilators. About 20% of premature infants when born will require a ventilator to survive. Through the years from 1990 to 2011, the under 5 mortality rate, which is the red line, and infant mortality rate, which is the blue line, have decreased significantly. However, the neonatal mortality rate, which is the green line, has only decreased slightly. In fact, in a UNICEF report in 2014, the world has made enormous progress in improving child survival since 1990. However, to accelerate progress in child survival, focusing on the newborn is critical since the share of all under 5 deaths occurring in the neonatal period is increasing. Why the lack of ventilators? Simply because they are expensive. When I inquired from the procurement office of the Philippine General Hospital the cost of commercial ventilators in the Philippines, they range between 1.2 to 2.4 million pesos, a price that is beyond the reach of many government hospitals to meet their ventilator needs, particularly in the newborn nurseries. Thus, alternatives to the lack of ventilators have been resorted to. The first is rental of ventilator by the family, which is quite expensive. The initial cost of ventilator rental is 2,000 pesos and then 1,000 pesos for each succeeding day. Since a premature infant can be on a ventilator for 7 to 21 days, the expense of rental is beyond the ability of the family to pay. As a consequence, the last alternative is sustained manual bagging of the infant by the watcher or bantay, the nurse, the medical resident, or the medical student. This is dangerous, since many are not trained in manual bagging of infants. Furthermore, manual bagging is tiring, since it is done 24/7. Due to uneven pressures applied to the delicate infant lungs by bagging, this can lead to serious complications such as air leak or pneumothorax, chronic lung disease, and in many instances, death of the infant. The ventilator is a relatively simple machine in principle and can therefore be produced locally. Thus, with the help of engineers from the University of the Philippines College of Engineering and the Philippine Department of Science and Technology, we developed a ventilator for infants that we eventually called the Ostreavent. There are several advantages to the Ostreavent. First, it was extensively tested in animals using newborn piglets and compared hand in hand to a standard commercial ventilator, the Sechrist. The picture on the left is my research team doing the animal experiments, and on the right, the intubated newborn piglet being ventilated alternately with the Ostreavent or the Sechrist. Second, when the Ostreavent was found to be safe and effective in animal studies, it was subsequently tested in a randomized prospective clinical study in 90 infants at the neonatal intensive care unit of the Philippine General Hospital. Ostreavent versus the Sechrist ventilator. The conclusion was that the Ostreavent in both animal and clinical studies was as safe and effective as a standard commercial Sechrist ventilator. Third, the results of the animal and newborn infant studies on the Ostreavent were published in 2010 in a peer-reviewed scientific journal, the Acta Medica Filipina. And this study was the lead article of the journal. Fourth, there are multiple features of the Ostreavent that make it efficient and easy to operate. The Ostreavent is a pressure-limited time-cycled ventilator. It is compact and has a color screen and two knobs to operate, unlike in other ventilators where as many as 9 knobs are present. The knob on the right is to adjust the peak inspiratory pressure or PIP, and on the left to adjust the positive and expiratory pressure or PEP. These knobs are used to increase or decrease their corresponding pressures. The Ostreavent has a color touch screen where breaths per minute or BPM and inspiratory time or I time can be increased or decreased by pressing on the up or down buttons as indicated by the arrows. The inspiratory-expiratory or IE ratio is automatically calculated and displayed. The PIP and the PEEP for each breath and the automatically calculated mean airway pressure or MAP are displayed on the right upper hand corner of the screen. There is an alarm off button which can be used to silence the alarm but only for 30 seconds for safety reasons. The bar graph on the left of the screen shows the PIP and PEP that are generated for each breath. The upper and lower red lines are the high and low pressure alarm limits that are set for the infant. The Ostreavent also has a running waveform graph of the breaths being generated by the ventilator and shows the PIP, PEEP pressures and the inspiratory and expiratory phases of each breath. The running display of the breaths can be temporarily halted to allow each breath to be analyzed more closely. On the right upper hand corner are the actual readings of the PIP, PEEP, and the calculated MAP. On the left lower corner of the screen are the date and time that the ventilator is operational. One of the unique features of the Ostreavent, which is not found in any existing commercial ventilator, is its USB port, as shown by the red arrow. One can insert a USB stick into the USB port and record in the subsequent 1500 breaths of the ventilator data on the PIP, PEP, breaths per minute, the MAP, and the I time. The generated data is in an Excel format and can be transmitted through the internet. Thus, we can monitor the performance of the Ostreavent anywhere without being present in the nursery to determine if the ventilator is functioning properly, as will be seen in the next slide. The precision of the Ostreavent can be measured during its operation from the USB data. The table shows the performance of the Ostreavent in 860 breaths generated by the ventilator. With a PIP set at 20 and PEEP set at 5 on the ventilator, the table shows that the mean PIP of 860 breaths is 19.51 with a standard deviation of 0.91 and a mean PEEP of 4.37 with a standard deviation of 0.23. How much more precision can you expect from a ventilator than this? The Ostreavent has also been issued a patent by the Philippine government to prevent unlawful and dangerous copying of the ventilator. One of the most important features of the Ostreavent is its low cost of 300,000 pesos as compared to 1.2 million pesos cost of a similar pressure-limited time-cycled commercial ventilator. Thus, the Ostreavent is one-fourth the cost of a similar commercial ventilator. Essentially, one can buy 4 Ostreavents for the price of one equivalent commercial ventilator. In 2012, the Breath of Life Foundation Incorporated was officially approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission of the Philippines. The foundation was established for the production, sale, and distribution of the Ostreavent. The Breath of Life Foundation is a non-profit, non-stock organization whose mission is to provide a low-cost, safe, and efficient ventilator and medical support for the sick newborn infants. Its vision is to decrease neonatal and infant mortality and morbidity in the Philippines and to help the Philippines attain its Millennium Goals by providing low-cost ventilators and medical needs of newborn infants, especially the sick premature infants. In the United States, the Breath of Life Foundation was granted by the Internal Revenue Service a 501c3 status in January 2015, which makes donations to the foundation as tax-deductible. In the Philippines, it will probably take 2 years before a similar tax-deductible status can be issued. In January 2015, our Holy Father, Pope Francis, came to the Philippines particularly to visit his flock who were the victims of devastation from Typhoon Yolanda. Millions of people in Palo, Leyte, shown in the upper right-hand corner, attended our Holy Father's Mass amidst the wind, rain, and mud to hear his message of mercy and compassion. Similarly, a papal mass was held in Luneta, Manila, shown in the right lower corner, where millions of people attended, again amidst the wind, rain, and mud. I attended the papal mass despite all these adversities in the weather because I was a witness to our Holy Father's call for mercy and compassion for the little ones. I wanted our Holy Father to bless us in our undertaking. So, during the final papal blessing, his benediction, I held high the logo of the Breath of Life Foundation for our Holy Father to bless us in our mission. I included in the logo his admonition, "Dear young people, do not bury your talents, the gifts that God has given you. Do not be afraid to dream of great things." This presentation ends with the beginning when I first witnessed this little girl valiantly using her fragile hands to manually sustain the life of her newborn sister. Problem of manual bagging of infants may seem insurmountable, but with compassion and determination it can be slowly overcome. Better it is to light one candle done to curse the darkness. Thank you.